Rick Dior, and welcome to episode 8, season 1 of Snare Drum of the Week. And today we have one of my favorite all-time snare drums, the Yamaha Maple Custom snare drum. So right next to it here, on my left, your right, is its little brother, the Dave Weckl snare. This snare drum right here, the original one, which came with this kit, which you've been hearing a lot, is a 5.5 by 14 drum, where this Dave Weckl drum is a 13 by 5-inch drum. They also made a 14-inch version of this. I much prefer, it's my own personal preference, this smaller version. And one of the reasons is because you have all this massive hardware, but we'll talk about that. And this Dave Weckl drum, I've done a video on this, but this will also get its own episode in this series, probably in season 2. But we're here today to talk about this incredible snare drum, and Yamaha has always made fantastic snares. It's a 7-ply maple shell, and there's something about this particular drum in this size, so not this particular drum, but any Yamaha Maple Custom that's 5.5 by 14, they always sound great. I've owned about 4 different ones of these. Now I'm just down to this one over the years, and this is my favorite one. Now this drum has a ton of gig miles on it. I've used this with every possible kind of gig you can imagine. Symphony orchestra gigs, theater gigs, jazz gigs, rock gigs, everything. Latin gigs, lots of those. So it's a really great, versatile, beautiful sounding drum. And one of the best things about it is that it's got an incredible tuning range. You've seen in this series that I talk about tuning range a lot because certain drums have a very limited tuning range. They sound good high but not low. They sound good low but not high. This drum sounds great in every tuning possible. So the head I'm using on this drum today is a old Majestic head that I took off of one of my Prophonic snare drums. This particular head sounds really great on this drum, and I use it a lot for symphony orchestra, and it's got a coating on it like a fiber skin that I can use a lot for brushes, so I like this head a lot. This particular head is worn out. One thing about the fiber skin heads, or this the skin tone heads sometimes, and this is a fiber skin head, by the way, they will wear out pretty quick and get these wrinkles on this little coating, so you got to change them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play both of these for you, and then I'm going to show you the inside of a Maple Custom snare, which is a thing to behold. It's beautiful. And then I'll put a Diplomat coated on there, which I need for a gig coming up. So I'll change the head. You'll be able to hear both heads. But this fiber skin is a Diplomat head. Now, I like the sound of very thin heads on these Yamaha snare drums. Thick heads do not sound good, in my opinion. I mean, they don't sound bad, but they don't sound as good as thin heads. But if you're doing a really heavy gig, you don't want to use a Diplomat. You'll mess that up in an hour. So you can use an Ambassador, and I'm talking Remo here, the Remo language, or an Emperor, which is even thicker, okay? And I always use coated heads when I play on my snare drums. I never use any kind of uncoated head or pinstripe or anything, because I play a lot of brushes. I just like the sound of a coated head. So I'll play both of these for you, and then we'll have a little episode where I talk about the inside of the drum. Now, I am going to talk about a few little things really fast. Things I don't like about the drum. There's always something about a drum that I don't like. And just a little side note, a lot of you have been emailing me and sending me comments about if I could have just one snare drum, what would it be? Stop it, in the words of Bob Newhart. I don't have a favorite snare drum. I like them all, okay? That's why I own them. There's, if I had a choice with one I could take with me, it would probably be, this drum, or maybe my Ludwig Super, which is a Superphonic but brass, because these are the best all-round drums. That one metal, this one wood, that I could think of that sound great in every tuning range. They're built like tanks. We'll talk about this in a minute with this drum. So yeah, hope that answers it. Stop sending me those emails, okay? All right, one little thing about this drum you should know about if you buy one. The lugs in the early ones were prone to break. So when you tuned it up, they would little piece of pot metal in here that would just snap off. They're 1-point lugs, so they connect to the shell in 1 point, okay? So just be aware that if you buy one of these, one of the early ones, that is definitely a possibility. So you can find the lugs, but they're going to be expensive. And we'll show you the inside soon. One thing also to note about it is these original snares, you should keep these. Other snares don't sound as good. They'll say Yamaha stainless snare on there, okay? So that's sort of a dead giveaway. I'll give you a close-up later. Every other snare type I've tried on this, and I've tried a lot, none of them sound as good as the original. So that's a rarity, right? The strainer is okay. It's not great, but it's quiet and it's dependable. And I've had this strainer, obviously, 1990s, so, you know, a long, long time on here, over 20 years, well over. So it's held up great. There's an adjustment on the back, which you know I like if you've watched this series, where I can tighten and loosen. So it's a good thing. You don't need to change anything. The strainer's quiet. It doesn't rattle, all that. Little bit different on the Dave Weckl, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. Now, you might see these gold rims, and you might say, what the heck? So I changed those out. So these rims are die-cast brass rims, solid, obviously, because it's die-cast, and they're very heavy. This is one of those drums that really, really benefits from die-cast hoops. It dries it up a little, adds some weight, makes it a tiny bit easier to tune. So I don't usually change the hoops on a lot of my drums, but once I did it on this drum, I was sold. So I have the original rims, which are fine. That's what's on this. The original ones will be basically silver, obviously, like this, okay? But these are brass, and they kind of go with the lugs, so they should have done that originally. It's got a lot of bling to it. So I do use die-cast hoops. And you'll see this drum, the shell's in amazing shape, but these hoops came off another old Gretsch drum. They're Gretsch hoops. So they've got some wear and tear on them. That's what the scratches are. The originals look perfect. So we'll play this for you now. I'll muffle this, and we'll play both of them. The tuning here right now is around a G. Great drum. Love it. Great rim shots, great tom sound, ringy. Now, if I muffle it, it does obviously dry it up quite a bit, but it still sounds good. So. One thing I should mention is I don't always play this drum over the snares. Sometimes I'll play it sort of, 12 o'clock there and the snares are going this way. All right, I'll show you the difference because it's very snary, the drum. And you heard it with the muffling. Now we'll take it off. So I find it's one of those drums that really, really sounds good just away from the snares. I don't know if that has anything to do with the bearing edge, but that's just a little quirk about these. And now I'll play the Dave Weckl drum. You heard this in another video. I'll just have the one set of snares on. Most of you know these drums have 2 sets of snares. Okay? Now, originally it came with 2 different sets of curly snares. I changed these out to a Grover set of orchestral snares because sometimes I want to use it to be really tight. We'll show you that in a second. All right, so here's just the one set of original snares. Now this drum I do play directly over the snares. And now I put on the Grover snare and listen to this. So right away I got 2 drums in one. And I like this setup better than the original setup. Okay, the idea I think was to have one set of snares tight, one set of snares loose, a little bit of response. So you have 2 different sounds, similar to the classical drums. You know, the majestic drums, where you can have 4 different snares, many combinations. Okay, also sounds great on tom. And we'll play both of them for you, wide open. Both tremendous sounding drums. Can't go wrong. Okay? Now, they are going to be expensive. That's the one thing that you might not like about them, the price. Okay? This Dave Weckl drum, I don't know what they're going for now, but well over $1,000 in this kind of shape. The 13s like this are a little more rare. Lots of 14s out there, but the 13s are great, and I told you I was going to tell you about this. The problem with the 14s is you got all this stuff on here, so you end up getting hit in the leg by this thing, unless you set it up like that. But I normally set my snares right to my left, so it's a problem. That's why the 13 is just great. And if I want a different sound, bigger, I just have this drum, so I got the best of both worlds. So what we'll do now is we'll change the head. I'll give you a little tour of the inside of this drum, and then we'll go to the drum set. Okay, so here's the drum with the head off, and you see the 1-point lugs in there. So these little black nuts here are just for the plate, which I'll show you in a minute, but the lugs are there. So it's a lot less hardware on the shell. That may be responsible for some of the sound, but this is a beautiful shell. So all these MIJ, which means made in Japan, drums had gorgeous shells. And I believe this is 7-ply maple, solid maple, but there could be something, it's a little bit darker in there. 2 plies of that. But it's definitely maple on the inside and the outside. So I would think it would be solid maple plies. And the older the drums get, I think the better they sound. Incredibly well made perfect bearing edges. So I wanted to also show you this head. This is what happens to the fiber skin heads. See that? Very common, so they don't last too long if you play hard on them. But this head has been on there for almost a year, so it needs to be changed. So we'll put this down. And then I'll give you the tour. We'll hold the camera here, and we'll also have the front. And this is a 10-lug drum, if I did not mention that before. Tunes up real easy. 10-8. It's not that big of a deal to me. And I'll give you a close-up of one of the lugs. So these lugs would tend to tarnish here. I take good care of mine. If you clean them a lot, they'll hold up pretty well. I always keep this in a case. Humidity is very important. Don't let it get too humid. So whenever you store this, put some packs of silica in the case so it'll absorb excess moisture. Otherwise, they will oxidize. So it's got a vent hole coming up here. There it is. And you see the strainer. So they also made an absolute series of these, but the lugs are different. They're a little more diamond shaped. And those drums, I've owned them. They're not as good, I don't think, the absolute. And here's the plate. And you see the serial number on there. It'll say air seal system. So this is a later 90s drum for sure. And we'll show you the back. Similar to almost like the Gretsch butt plate there, where you could tune it, and lots of other drums too. So yeah, like I said, 10 lugs, and we'll go underneath here. That's the original head. Never needed to change it. Always sounded good. I don't change bottom heads unless the drum starts sounding bad. Then I'll go ahead and change them. And I'll just show you the original snares. That's what they'll say. Yamaha stainless snare. These are great, great snares. And I will use the string, not the ribbon. I've told you I don't like the ribbon on that right here. Let's turn it over. All right, so I think that's it. We'll put the Diplomat on here, and then we'll go to the drum set. So here we are at the kit. Tuned the head up. It's pretty tight. It takes a little while for these Diplomats to break in. By the end of this video, it should be broken in. But this is a high tuning here. So at this tension, pretty tight, you don't need any muffling because the ring is very manageable. So it's one of my favorite snares for any type of Latin music. It just sounds really, really good, tuned up this high. Okay, so let's try a little bit of a lower tuning now. We'll just bring it down 1/4 turn actually. And that translates on this drum, since it's 10 lugs, to about a whole step all the way around. So it works really well for any kind of pop music, rock music, very thick sounding. And if you put a little bit of muffling on it, this is one of my smallest muffles here. It dries it up really nicely, but not too much. I don't care for the muffling at all if I'm playing any kind of jazz. But that works well, that kind of tuning. And being such a shallow drum, 5.5 inches, it doesn't bottom out on you. It's still got a lot of fatness to it. So that's the low tuning. And we'll throw the Dave Weckl snare up here real quick so you can get a little bit of a comparison. And this drum obviously is going to be a lot tighter. We won't spend too much time on this basket. I'll just leave it like it is. You see how these come out this side. Makes it a little cumbersome. Got kind of a real cool ring there. Now, that's with both snares on. This is with just the one. So this drum has some multiple personalities. It's great with that just that one snare on. So they both sound fantastic because I am convinced of the shells and the 1-point lugs. Now this drum, 1, 2, 3, 4, only has 6 lugs, which is very interesting. So, you know, normally a 13 might have 8. It's possible, never 10, but so it's interesting the design difference because that's a 10 lug drum over there. We'll put this one back on. And you could see a whole video I did on Dave Weckl snare, and we'll do another one probably in this series just so I can keep them all together. The drum isn't too heavy. It probably weighs about, I'd say 10 pounds, sort of like a Gretsch 4160, that kind of weight. All right, so we'll tune it back up. We'll tune it real high now. Try to break this head in. You can actually, you know, really almost try to choke the drum, but be careful of the lugs. Again, if you have an older one, they will pop out on you. So take it easy. All right, make sure before you tighten it, you know what you got.